From his days as a petty thief to becoming the biggest drug trafficker in the world, the life of Pablo Escobar, aka the King of Cocaine, is filled with violence and crime. At the time of his death, Pablo was worth an estimated $30 billion. Since his demise, a large number of murders have been attributed to Escobar's ruthless hitmen. And if you're a fan of the hit Netflix series Narcos, you must be familiar with some of them. So, in this video, let's take a look at where Pablo Escobar's cold-blooded hitmen are today and what's happening in their lives. Let's begin. History. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was a Colombian drug lord and narco-terrorist who became the king of crack in the 70s. Escobar was the proud founder of the Medellin Cartel, an organized Colombian drug cartel and terrorist-type criminal organization that is said to be the first drug cartel. Don Pablo has made his name in history as the wealthiest criminal in history, having amassed a staggering net worth of $30 billion by the time of his death. At the height of his illegal operations, the King of Cocaine was responsible for 80% of all the cocaine being smuggled worldwide. The Medellin cartel completely monopolized the cocaine trade in the United States in the 80s and early 90s. This means that Pablo Escobar had smuggled nearly $500 million worth of cocaine into the US every day since he started leading his cartel. Now, this raises a couple of questions. How did Pablo become the wealthiest, most powerful drug lord in history? Simple. He had an entire army of merciless killers who followed him blindly and killed Pablo's rivals for him at the drop of a hat. This small militia of hitmen and grunts helped the Colombian criminal achieve his goals and crush all his enemies without remorse or repercussions. These loyal hitmen, known as the Sicarios, are considered to be one of the deadliest gangs in history. In fact, these guys were so bloodthirsty that they killed at least 1,294 people in Colombia, most of them in narco-gang warfare between rival groups. So we know that it was Escobar who orchestrated many of these killings, but who practically carried out his orders? The most notorious hitmen in the Kingpin's army were John Jairo Velázquez Vázquez, or Popeye, Dandeni Munoz Mosquera, aka La Kika, and Nelson Blackie Hernandez. So let's start with John Vázquez. Popeye, or John Jairo Velázquez Vázquez. Popeye sounds like a very cute nickname, until you look past the childishly innocent moniker and into the dark life of Escobar's right-hand man. So the real reason behind John Velázquez's nickname is because of his physical resemblance to the character. Anyway, let's get to Popeye's villain origin story. The Colombian hitman started his life in the municipality of Yarumal, Colombia. It might come as a surprise, but Popeye actually started out pretty decently in life. He joined the Colombian National Army. After that, he was in the cadet school of the National Police before joining the School of Apprentices of the Colombian Navy. Yeah, it's kind of weird that a hitman once used to be part of something that was there to serve the country and protect the public. Who knows, maybe they taught him how to efficiently shoot people point blank between the eyes without flinching. Before long, Popeye's law-abiding days soon came to an end. By the time he was caught, he had confessed to killing 257 people, or at least that's what he claimed. Who knows how many people ate the bullet at his hand? But the list of Popeye's crimes doesn't end there. Unfortunately, it's a pretty gruesome list. Besides kidnapping common citizens, the hitman also kidnapped the candidate for mayorship, a guy named Francisco Santos. In addition to that, he also kidnapped several other important public figures like famous politicians in Colombia. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you were wealthy or influential. In the end, Escobar's cold-blooded hitman would get his bloody hands on you one way or the other. Or, more precisely, his bullet. Now, you guys must be gasping in shock and horror at the list of Popeye's crimes. Wait till you find out how rotten this guy really was. It's said that roughly 3,000 were put 6 feet under after he arranged their deaths. Just think about what an enormous number that is, and you will understand what a psychotic genius this guy was. Truly an asset to a pitiless drug lord like Pablo Escobar. But not to worry, because John Velázquez can't hurt anyone anymore. He surrendered to the Colombian justice system in 1992 and admitted to being lieutenant, commanding half of the Sicarios. Velasquez served a prison sentence on charges of terrorism, drug trafficking, extortion, conspiracy for terrorist purposes, and murder from 1992 to 2014. After 23 years in prison, Popeye was released on August 26, 2014. But maybe he had grown used to his environment because he returned to prison on extortion charges in 2018. Old habits die hard and all that. So what started Popeye on his journey of death and violence? In an interview, the hitman recounts his first kill at the tender age of 17. He revealed that he killed a bus driver who had run over his close friend's mother. So while other kids were studying for their high school exams or hanging out with friends, Velasquez was exacting revenge out of a twisted sense of righteousness. It's very interesting to note that Popeye created his own YouTube channel during his time out. And there, the stone-cold killer regaled the internet with his bloody stories from the past. According to the ex-hitman, there was an 80% chance that a former gang member would kill him. But rather than a blast from the past, it was stomach cancer that finally took Jean Velasquez's life in 2020 while incarcerated. Alright, so next up on today's list of Pablo Escobar's deadliest hitman is none other La Kika. Dandeni Muñoz Mosqueda, or La Kika. Considered by many to be the most ruthless among Escobar's henchmen, Dandeni Mosqueda was described as the chief assassin for Pablo Escobar. At first, La Kika was inducted into the Colombian army, joining the drug war waging in Colombia. However, the army didn't take too kindly to one of their own stealing stuff, so he was discharged due to several minor theft charges. So after that, La Kika jumped ship and joined Escobar's Medellin cartel. And if you're wondering why he was called La Kika, which means fat girl, it's because he had a stark resemblance with his aunt. You gotta hand it to those Colombian cartels because they sure have a way of wacky but spot-on nicknames. La Kika soon rose in the cartel's ranks and made a niche for himself as a certified sadist and torture specialist. As Escobar's most trusted hitman, La Kika was responsible for running a training camp for child assassins. Basically, he and his criminal buddies would take kids from the street and hone them into seasoned killers for hire. This isn't even the tip of the iceberg. The vicious killer would also mutilate his victims by carving KK on their bodies. This would alert people that he was the murderer and not to mess with him or his boss. It's also rumored that La Kika would skin his victims alive and even castrate them. Yikes! It's honestly quite shocking that La Kika chose to be who he was, because with a policeman father and an evangelist mother, it really makes you wonder what went wrong. Maybe the guy had a couple of screws loose, which is why Pablo Escobar took him under his wing and nurtured him into an expert hitman of the century. Anyway, it's believed that his kill count ranges in the hundreds, but there's no way to prove that for certain. However, the US authorities have linked La Kika to the deaths of more than 220 people. It includes members from both his own organization, the Medellin Cartel, and the rival Cali Cartel, as well as police officers and government officials. And more than 40 police officers were killed by La Kika, according to the Colombian authorities. Yeah, he kept himself pretty busy during his youth. In fact, La Kika actually managed to blip onto the radar of the United States, but they were helpless to stop him at the time because they just didn't have the jurisdiction. However, that all changed after the 1989 bombing of Flight Avianca. When La Kika blew up an airplane on Escobar's orders, he had no idea that it would paint a target on his back. The plane he blew up in midair had killed all 101 passengers on board. And 2 of those passengers were American citizens. So now, the American government had a good solid reason to come after La Kika, and boy, they came at him hard. The vicious hitman was the first person to be tried under the US justice system that would put foreign criminals on trial in cases of American death, and he also had the honor of being the first person to be convicted for the bombing of a civilian aircraft. Quite a lot of first times there for La Kika. He was tied to 220 murders by the American government and more than 440 murders by the Colombian government. A track record that La Kika must be proud of, no doubt there. He was sentenced to 10 life sentences and 45 years to be served consecutively after he underwent trial in 1994. And that's where he is spending his days, in the same prison as the notorious Unabomber. At least La Kika has like-minded friends there. Nelson Hernandez or Blackie. One of the top lieutenants of Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel was a guy named Nelson Hernandez, or Blackie, a nickname originated from his African descent. Blackie was one of Escobar's closest partners and confidants since the late 1970s, working as one of his bodyguards and sicarios. As a lifelong follower of Escobar, Blackie was trusted enough to stay with Escobar's family from time to time. Besides assassinating and torturing people on Escobar's orders, Blackie also helped his boss out of many sticky situations by destroying any evidence against Escobar, including the poor judges. In 1993, Blackie carried out the Bogota shopping center bombing, planting 220 pounds of C4 plastic explosives in a car parked in a downtown shopping center. The bombing caused 20 deaths and left 70 people wounded. This was the moment that Blackie realized he messed up. Feeling guilty over what he had done after watching television footage of the aftermath of his own attack, Blackie finally admitted to himself that Escobar was going crazy. In the end, he was arrested by police and interrogated by the DEA. But rather than allowing himself to be punished for his heinous crimes, Blackie gave Agent Javier Peña and Agent Steve Murphy critical details on La Kika. This led to the search block raid on Monte Cassino. So where is Nelson Hernandez these days? Well, no one knows. We can't say for sure where Pablo Escobar's most devoted hitman is, but it's assumed that he is alive and well in the Witness Protection Program. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.